For those of you who I'm meeting for the first time, I'm MaryBeth. I am a teacher here on Insight Timer. I've been a teacher here for a little over 2 years, and I started doing lives in January. And they kicked off doing this Permission to be Human Pledge Challenge, which was the idea of every day for the month of January, we would start the day by putting your hand on your heart and reciting the Permission to be Human pledge, which we're going to do together today. And the whole idea and intention behind that is that we so frequently are willing to be kind and compassionate and loving to others, but we don't extend that same grace and love to ourselves. And so this is really about how do we give ourselves permission to be human so that we can actually give that to others from a place of it being unconditional versus a place of, well, why don't they give that to me, right? Or why don't I have this or that? It doesn't matter. You can give it to yourself. You don't have to get it from others. You give it to yourself. And then when you do that inner work, you start to attract and align with others who are in that same frequency, in that same vibration. So for today, we are going to do our regular practice, which is 3 things. It's about self-awareness. So noticing what's going on in ourselves, whether it's noticing what's happening in our bodies, in our minds. And then we go into self-compassion, which is, okay, no matter what I'm noticing, I'm going to meet it with love versus judgment or victimhood, right? A lot of times, so for example, if I said, I'm going to honor what makes me perfectly imperfect, which is this first line of the pledge, and then we find out, oh, now I'm just going to judge myself for all the ways that I'm imperfect in my mind. So if that happens to you, no need to double down on the judgment. Simply recognize, oh, isn't that interesting? You can separate and observe what's going on with your thoughts, what's going on with your body. So you can start to connect that to a pattern within yourself. And then the third part is self-care. So how do I now ignite self-care in what I'm made aware of through the self-awareness and the self-compassion practice? Hi, Amanda. Wonderful to have you as always. So that's what we're going to get into today. And for those of you who are joining and are new, I invite you, and for those of you who are coming back and haven't joined yet, I invite you to join our group, which used to be called Circles here on Insight Timer. It's called Permission to be Human. And in that group, the intention is several intentions actually, but primarily to serve as an extended community from these lives, to be able to share what's come up for you in between or during the practices, maybe something you want to process, maybe something you want to celebrate, something that brings you great joy that you can spread more joy to others. We've had folks, Sven sharing lots of songs that make him think of this work, and other folks sharing some sticking points that we can all jump in. I'm certainly the teacher in this moment, but we all have wisdom to share. We all have so much wisdom that we can give to one another, whether it's here in the chat in this live experience or it's in this group. So I invite you to join the group. I also have listed all of the schedule for the week, so you know we have this practice every Monday and every Friday. This week's a little bit different because I have an all-day event on Friday. I'm going to a horse expo for the first time. I'm a cowgirl. And I hear it's from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So I did not anticipate being able to step away. So I have a session this week on Thursday instead of Friday because I always want to have 2 practices. And again, that's for Eastern Standard Time where I am here in Baltimore. So I invite you to keep coming back. A lot of folks refer to this as their maintenance practice, which I love because it's so true. You can give yourself permission to be human one day and then forget that that's an option for you the next. And so the whole reason of doing this practice together is to be reminded of the truth, to be reminded of our choices, and to step into alignment with the choices that are going to serve us so that we can truly feel our human experience and then extend that out to others from that well of being overflowing with those feelings versus depleted from not having enough of it. And today I have another practice that I have coming up at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is prayers for peace in Ukraine. So this is obviously distinct and separate from this permission to be human practice. And it's something that I feel very personally compelled to do. I don't typically do 2 lives in one day. I've never done that before, but this was the earliest I could make it happen. And I used to be an exchange student in Ukraine when I was in middle school. And as the universe would have it, Zhenya, my exchange sister, I lived with her family, and then she actually came back and lived with my family in the US when we were in middle school. It's crazy to think how adventurous I was as a really young person. I'm really impressed with myself looking back. And so I had a deep connection with her. And then at the time, it was when the internet didn't exist. And so letters were not really that easy to get back and forth to the Ukraine from the US. And so we lost touch. And that's what happens a lot of times. But I'm so fortunate that about 6 months ago, she found me on social media. And we talk regularly. And we've been talking every day for the past few weeks in providing updates and checking in and understanding what's going on. And I felt, I'm sure like many of you, very hopeless from a, what can I do? Like as one human being, what can I do as one human being? And I just know the power of meditation. I know the power of prayer. I know the research behind it. And so that's why I have added a second practice today, both for very personal reasons and also for the shared human experience of wanting to be a part of a possibility for peace and really owning that possibility as the truth when we do this inner work with ourselves. The ripple effects are scientifically proven. And I know that Insight Timer is going to be a huge part in that possibility happening all over the world. So for anyone here who's interested in joining me again today at 2 p.m., I'll be doing a very different practice. So to be totally honest, I am very curious to see how folks show up and what we ultimately dive into. I have some wisdom I want to share from some of my mentors who have been speaking about this time in our world, and also want to share some of the experiences that Zhenya has been keeping me posted on every day from Ukraine, but primarily to give ourselves a moment of recognizing that we are powerful and we're not hopeless. And there all are things that we can do in order to really create peace inside of ourselves, which then has a ripple effect all over the world. And I got to tell you, I used to think that stuff was like phony baloney, just made to make people feel better. And it's not. It's scientifically proven. There is so much evidence and research of the impact of when we take the time to be in meditation, to be in prayer, and to do that across the globe. So I invite you to join me there. All right. So for our practice today, I would encourage everybody to be kind and generous to yourself. That's really what permission to be human is all about. Just noticing whatever feelings come up, giving yourself permission to have those feelings, not try to shut them down, rather allow them to express themselves and move through you. I just started to feel like I was going to start crying. And I am a big believer, a firm believer, an advocate for allowing that to move through you, not to shut it down, not to hold it back. You know, whatever happens, whatever comes up for you, if it's laughter, if it's tears, whatever it is in the spectrum, allow it to be what it is and just notice and observe. So that's when we can really give ourselves permission to be human instead of thinking we have to be one way or another way. No, we get to be who we are authentically. And that is a choice to make every day. All right, so let us begin this practice. So wherever you are, start to make yourself comfortable in your body. Perhaps you want to roll your neck, your shoulders, your wrists, your ankles, whatever is going to feel the best to you. Maybe give yourself a twist, whatever's good. Just making sure that your arms and legs are uncrossed. And if you'd like, you can close your eyes or gaze down, whatever serves you best. And choose whether you want to have your hands up or down. Hands up meaning that you are receiving energy. Hands down is grounding your energy. All right, let's begin by taking long, deep breaths in and out of your nose, as long as the passage is clear. Just elongating your breath, even just slightly more than your regular cadence. And begin to notice how your rib cage expands and contracts with each breath. Notice the air entering and exiting your nostrils. Notice your belly rise and fall with each inhale and exhale. And now bringing awareness to your face. Notice anywhere you can soften. Anywhere you're holding on to tension. Perhaps in your forehead, eyes, or your jaw. So without judgment, allowing it to release with your exhale. Just softening anywhere that's tight. Now moving down through your neck and shoulders. Really allowing your shoulders to drop. Releasing anything you're holding on to here. And continuing to make whatever adjustments your body says will feel good. Now bringing your awareness down through your back and your chest. Your arms and your torso. Again, just softening anywhere that you could use a release. Visualizing your breath being sent to that place in your body. Down through your seat and your legs. And then finally all the way to your feet. Feeling this connection to the ground. And now bringing your awareness to each and every one of your toes. See how many of your toes you can notice. Really grounding in this present moment. Being very aware of how your body is responding and communicating with you. Knowing that the body is your keeper of your soul. Always sending messages. And when we listen to those messages at a whisper, our body doesn't have to scream. Always listening to those whispers and making adjustments throughout this practice and throughout life. Continuing with this elongated breath on your next inhale, you're invited to bring your hands to your heart space. Bringing your awareness to the beat of your heart. Noticing its cadence, its pace. Perhaps you can even feel the connection between the palm of your hand and the beating of your heart. This beautiful heart that beats just for you. Now sending our breath directly to our heart. Having a moment of gratitude for this keeper of your values, for this keeper of love, for this keeper of the beat of your day. Knowing your heart is here to serve you and you to serve your heart. And knowing that your heart only beats right now, not in the past and not in the future, just like our breath. We can only breathe in the present, and our heart only beats in the present. which means that both our breath and our hearts are beautiful tools to anchor ourselves back into this moment, right here, right now. Knowing that as many times as your mind wanders throughout this guided meditation, you always have the choice to come back to your breath, come back to your heartbeat as many times as you need, with self-awareness, self-compassion, and self-care. No judgment needed. This is a part of your human experience. Always giving yourself that permission. Knowing you can make a new choice again and again and again. And that is the journey to alignment. In a moment, I will recite each line from the Permission to be Human pledge. And you are invited to say it aloud or in your mind after each line. The invitation, again, is to simply be aware of what comes up for you. What do you notice in your mind, in your body? How might you ignite self-compassion with whatever you're noticing? And where might there be bigger opportunities for self-care within and beyond the practice today? That is your invitation. Let's begin. Let's take a deep breath in and out. I promise to honor what makes me perfectly imperfect. I promise to meet myself where I am, not where I want to be. I promise to suspend judgment and ignite compassion. I promise to set healthy boundaries to protect my energy. I promise to prioritize my well-being by embodying my values. And in doing so, I promise to give myself and others permission to be human. Another deep breath in and out. And today we'll go deeper into the promise to suspend judgment and ignite compassion. Where in your life might you be jumping into judgment of yourself? Where might you be unkind in your mind on the stories you're telling yourself about who you are, where you are on your journey? Simply notice what comes up. What does it look like when you judge yourself in this way? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Allowing yourself to observe the experience versus getting caught up in the experience. What do you notice in your body as you become aware of this judgment? And in that awareness, what would self-compassion sound like? What would self-compassion look like and feel like if you were to respond to these judgments from a place of kindness, treating yourself as your own best friend? What's the truth about the ways you are being overly judgmental, and have a big opportunity to choose compassion towards yourself. Now say those words. See that response and feel the love you can produce in your heart that extends to every cell of your body when you have the self-awareness to know when you're being unkind, and when you have the tools to make a new choice, to change the story you're telling yourself about what's true and what isn't. Allow those feelings of self-compassion to wash over you into a new possibility of what it means to give yourself permission to be human. Taking long, deep breaths now into this choice of self-compassion. Breathing in this possibility and breathing out the judgments. Breathe in self-compassion. Breathe out self-judgment. Breathe in self-compassion. Breathe out self-judgment. And on your next exhale, you can slightly bend your head towards your heart, having a bow of gratitude for choosing to show up today, for choosing to show up in your life, for choosing to be a vessel of love and light and possibility, to embody what's possible when you give yourself permission to be human. Knowing that this is not only a gift for you, but a gift for every single person who comes across your path, and more than you'll ever realize. What a gift. What a gift to be incredibly grateful for. And at the sound of the chime, I invite you to take a long, deep inhale in. Once again, breathing in that self-compassion, holding your breath for as long as you can at the top, and then finally a deep exhale out of any lingering judgments that you can feel moving their way out of your body. And whenever you feel ready, you can slowly bring yourself back. Wiggle your fingers and toes. If you even want to give your neck another roll, your wrists, your ankles. Lauren, I'm so glad to hear this was beautiful for you. And for Maria, you're so welcome. I'd love to hear in a word or a short phrase, how are you feeling now? Were you able to notice where you can give yourself some more self-compassion? And you can let go of judgments? Were you able to notice what came up in your body? There are so many gifts when we choose to be present and when we choose to give ourselves permission to be human. I'll tell you, for this practice for me today, promising to suspend judgment and ignite compassion, a lot of that was towards myself and how do I show up? How do I show up in this world today? When I have these wonderful things happening in my personal life, and yet the world seems to be in crisis, right? Not even seems to, it is. And this is what we're witnessing happening now with Ukraine and Russia, and feeling oftentimes like I judge myself for what I do and I don't do, what's enough, what's not enough. Am I wrong for having happiness in my heart as well as sadness? Right? And I judge myself. I judge myself for that, for not knowing the answers. Pete and Chris, I'm so glad. Self-love and so powerful and so needed. So glad to hear that. Really appreciate that you're here. Yeah, it is, Maria. It's hard. Being a human is hard. Being a human is hard. And that's why this permission to be human work is so important to me in my personal life, in my professional life, in this community and beyond. Because it's hard. It's hard. So we need these reminders. We need to remember that we're not alone. We need to remember that we can have duality inside of us, right? We can have these high highs and these low lows with what seems to be in the exact same moment, right? Yeah, I'm seeing Chris saying, I struggle with duality of sadness, grief, and happiness. So happy to have this community and share these things. Yeah, Chris, it's so true. Like, wanting to do the right thing, but not knowing what the right thing is a big part of giving ourselves permission to be human. And so what my practice has been is just asking my heart, what's right for this moment? What's right for today, right? And recognizing that I can feel the sadness, I can feel the grief, I can feel those parts of what's true. And I don't have to judge myself or feel guilty for also having good things going on in my life. Doesn't make things better in the world for me to shut down the positive things that are happening, right? And so that duality of like, oh, what do I do with this? That was what came up for me today when I was doing this practice within myself. And for anybody who feels called to do more of that practice in this duality and putting intentional energy towards really channeling our high vibration frequencies towards peace in Ukraine, I invite you to join me at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 2 hours and 15 minutes from now. I'll be coming back on live and sharing about my personal connection to the people of Ukraine. Having been an exchange student there, and my host family and I are in contact, sharing some wisdom I've gained from my teachers during this time that has been so helpful and so grounding when I didn't have the words or understand how to do something about it, right? What do I do? How do I channel this? And being in community to go into a guided practice of sending love and prayers towards those in this world who are suffering, and particularly those in Ukraine. Yeah. Lauren, I'm so glad to know you're giving yourself permission to be human. Yeah, I think there's a mind-body disconnect. Lauren, and if you're feeling like there's anxiety that you need to move out, I actually encourage you to do physical movement in that. So whether that's dancing, whether that's just shaking, the physical act of shaking our bodies helps to release a lot of what we're holding onto in the disconnect of what's being stored up inside of us. So I encourage anybody who wants to take it to another level, do some physical movement also. Allow it to move through you, knowing that it will keep coming back. It will, right? Like we always have the opportunity to allow it to be present, understand what the wisdom is, and then move through. Allow it to release and move through. And then when it comes back, whether it's the same or the next version or whatever it might be, we give ourselves the same permission and we go through the practice again. So I thank you for joining me today. I hope I'll see you in 2 hours and 15 minutes back here. This is the first time I'm doing 2 lives in a day, but this is what my heart told me to do. This is what made me feel like I could be a part of something powerful in this world. And I know we're all doing that, whether you join it too or not. I know we're all a part of that, because when we are taking care of ourselves, we are changing the frequency of this world to show that that's possible. And it emanates way beyond the sphere you could ever imagine. I was looking at a bunch of research this morning, which I'll share more of it at 2:00 on the power of global prayer practices. So for anybody who enjoyed this practice today, I invite you to come back. We typically have these every Monday and Friday. Otherwise, this week, it's going to be Monday and Thursday. So today and Thursday, simply because I have a commitment all day on Friday. And I wanted there to be 2 practices on this permission to be human. Next time we come back, we'll go deeper into the next line, which is about setting healthy boundaries. Protect your energy. If you could use some support with setting boundaries, please join. This is like my big one, is finding freedom through boundaries. So please join. And if you want to go deeper, I have a ton of guided practices here on Insight Timer, in addition to a course called Knowing and Living Your Values. We have almost 5,200 students in there now. It's been beautiful to see how many of you are joining me over there. I am in the incubation phases right now of figuring out what my Permission to Be Human course is going to be, which will be what comes out next. But you can also join in the group that we have called Permission to Be Human, and share your experiences. I'm happy to provide support along the way, however I can. And this community is here to provide additional support too. And always remembering that you're not alone. So for today, for all of the donations that come through, I am going to be earmarking them for an orphanage that I have a connection to in Kiev that's working with orphans who have aged out of the system and are alone in this time. So if anybody feels compelled to make a donation today, that is where they will be earmarked. And again, the same for this afternoon. I'll be making those donations again to just feel like taking some aligned action into what's possible. Clive, you're saying, thank you, practicing and refraining from using the word selfish. Yes. It's amazing the negative associations to the word selfish, because being, according to, right, the definition of selfish, which is putting yourself first, that's actually how we make the world work. When we start putting everybody else in front of us, we don't know how to take care of ourselves. We wind up living for everyone but ourselves. And therefore, we cannot come from a place of abundance and our cups overflowing in possibility, but rather from a place of scarcity and obligation. So this is your invitation to rework your relationship to the word selfish too. Because actually, I think selfless is way more damaging than being selfish. When we're selfless, it means we're not really paying attention to ourselves and our own needs, which are moments in time that matters, right? There are moments in time where that is really important. But generally speaking, if we're doing our whole life for somebody else or for other people, we're not actually here living out our purpose, which is to figure out who we are at our core and live in alignment with those values every day. Yeah. So I thank you again so much. Please follow me as a teacher if you haven't yet. Join our group, make a donation, listen to the practices, be a part of the Knowing and Living Your Values course, and come back. Share with others if this made a difference for you. This is an ongoing experience in global community together, and I look forward to continuing that with you. So I hope to see you in a couple hours, and if not, I hope to see you really soon. Thank you, and keep giving yourself permission to be human.